was where I had spent the longest time, and that was the Dempseys. I was a mother and father, and they had a daughter, Shanna, and it was just an amazing relationship. It was where I was the longest. I was there over a year, and that's where you saw the most improvement in me, because the last comment that I read to you, that was actually Elida, who was my foster mother. She had submitted that to DSS, and she said, I can't handle it anymore. And then shortly after she did that, she sent him another letter, said, I changed my mind, I'm not giving up on him. And that, again, as I said before, that's where I had the most improvement in my situation. My walls came down, I began, trusting again, I began, believing in people. If they said they were going to do something, they actually did it. And I wasn't that angry, bitter kid with a chip on my shoulder that I was the whole time. And it was because of them. And this is actually a picture of me and Shanna at her graduation when I was in foster care. It was a great time, they were great parents, and the only reason why I left them was because the stipulation of me being in foster care was my stepfather. And my mom had broken up with my stepfather, so because he wasn't in the picture anymore, I was allowed to return back home. So after the Dempseys, that was my time in foster care. But it wasn't the time of my pain. For time purposes, I'm just kind of going to go through this kind of quick. I went back home, but that didn't stop the emotional and psychological abuse that I had. I don't know if many of you are familiar with Ulster County, but Route 209 is a major highway. And my mom got so drunk one day, she decided to take her clothes off and run down Route 209. So here I am, 12, 13 years old, chasing my drunk, naked mother down the road. And you can only imagine the bullying that I experienced in school, because clearly everyone saw that. And then, unfortunately, my mother did get back with my stepfather. So I had to deal with the emotional, the psychological abuse from him again. But the physical abuse stopped one day because he had a stroke and he lost 50% of the strength on the left side of his body. And just at that time, I started getting bigger for football. And then one day, we got into an argument about something, and he said, you're never going to amount to anything, and you're going to be a scumbag just like your father. And I don't know what happened, but I put him through a wall. And I'm not condoning violence, but that did stop his abuse of me. So things were good for a while, and then one day I came home from school, and they said, we need to talk. Okay? So I go in the living room, and they said, we went to the doctor, and your mother and I both have AIDS. My mother had contracted it from my father from all his drug use. So here I am, 16 years old, and I just was basically told that, my mother and my stepfather had a death sentence put on them. So it was pretty difficult to take. In addition to that, my father died when I was 17 years old. I cried, but it wasn't crying for the loss of my father, it was crying for the loss of someone I kind of knew. Again, I'm jumping around several years. 28 years old, my mom died. Age-related complications. And this is before and after, as you can see. The one before, that was her high school picture that I showed you earlier. The other picture, that's what she looked like right before she died. And then sadly, the most stable person I ever had in my life was my best friend. And when I was 31, he also passed away from cancer. It was difficult. There was a lot of loss in my life. There was a lot of asking why. But one of the things that one of my foster parents instilled in me was, everything happens for a reason. You may not know what the reason is at the time, but everything does happen for a reason. And that's what was able to get me through all that turmoil.